Yeah, thank you. It's good to be with you. Thanks for joining. And is this remind me if well, I know that Nathaniel is working on and has been working on setting up a speaker series, which is I guess why I got a call. And the statewide People First meetings, and this goes back a ways, so somebody can update me. But I seem to remember that for a long time, it seemed like about once a month, People First had people coming in from different parts of the state, all
Yeah, our
meeting
chapters.
in
Yep.
Stevens Point, maybe.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
we have 17. We've gotten big. We're just not up and all running again, because of COVID, but we have,
Yeah.
when we used to come to Stephen Point, we had like 2 or 3 chapters. We got 17. We're just trying to get them back up and running, so And
Yeah.
Sydney, you can chime in too if you know the history. So can Masania. Yeah, and we're getting ready to have our big meeting that we have every other month or every 3. Our People First meeting will be on Saturday. So
Yeah.
It's
So
every 3 months.
every 3
Cindy?
months. Thank you.
Every 3 months, and we have meetups that are run by Julie Blasky. We have movie nights that are run by Julie Blasky.
Yeah.
We have I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's well, and we go to the governor's office.
We go.
The
But
committee goes too. Yeah, and Julie Bessie is from your part of town, part of the city too. She's from Madison.
All right.
Just so you know.
Yeah. So
and very, very, very nice.
Nice. Well, okay. So just so you all know, going back a lot of years, I mean, I think when I first heard about People First at all, it was not long after I moved to Wisconsin, because when I still lived in Michigan, which is where I'm from and where I went to college and where I met my wife, Betsy, then we decided to move to Wisconsin after we graduated and got married. And at that point, I didn't know what I was going to do for work. I mean, I had some ideas, but we moved here and my wife, Betsy's a nurse. And so she got a job working at UW Hospital in pediatrics and just retired last year, but, spent her whole nursing career in pediatrics. And that's kind of how things started for her professionally when we got here to Wisconsin. Actually, we kind of ended up in Madison or in Wisconsin at all, a little bit by accident, although I don't really believe too much in accidents. I think there were some reasons why this happened to us, but we were actually going to go to Minneapolis. And we were kind of moving from Michigan to Minneapolis because I was going to go to grad school there. And that was going to be our home, at least for a few years. And kind of at the last minute, a friend of mine said, hey, when you're driving to Minneapolis from here back in Michigan, you're going to go right past Madison. And would you be able to stop and feed my friend's cat and water their plants in Madison? And we said, sure, that'd be great. And we did. And we stopped for an overnight in Madison and spent the whole next day here and promptly fell in love with this city and changed all of our plans and decided not to go to Minneapolis after all. So we just ended up staying in Madison and have no regrets about that. And so she got a nursing job and I got a couple of part-time, 3 or 4 different part-time jobs at first to kind of add it up to like full-time work. And one of them was delivering pizza for Domino's. That was just on my bucket list. I always wanted to deliver pizza. So I did for a few months. And then that got kind of old. I also met a man who had a disability who now lives in California, but he was looking for somebody to help with his personal care on weekends. And that fit my schedule. And so I started had started getting my first experience. What is that like, to help somebody get out of bed and take a shower and get changed and drive his van to the grocery store and all that kind of stuff. And it was awesome. And I started thinking, the world of disabilities in general was something that was a brand new thing for me. And I started to realize I need to be around people like Rick, like this guy who I was starting to work with, because it's opening up this entire different world for me that I just had no idea about. And that eventually led to me getting a job for a provider agency. So if we're going to touch it all today on any of Nathaniel and I talked a little bit about, and I'm very curious to hear your perspective on this, talking a little bit about the people who are working in the field for our support agencies and for our MCOs and for, basically the people who are paid to be in the world of disability and to be in the lives of people with disabilities. That to me was formed back in like 1985 when I started working for Options in Community Living in Madison. And then I worked there for like the next 19 years. And then I eventually left to work kind of independently for myself, doing training and consultation. And so that's what I've been doing. And so I've learned a lot over the years about People First. And I got to tell you, including in other states and even in some other countries, and you guys here in Wisconsin, I hope you never sell yourselves short when you think about, what is People First doing around here, and are we very effective, and are we making any change in our state? And the answer is yes, you for sure are. And I've just been really. It's been an honor for me to get to know some of the people who are involved with People First, and also just to kind of watch and observe what work you're doing on behalf of all kinds of people. So thank you for that. And again, thanks for having me here. So is there anything, I'm prepared to, I can sing a couple songs while we're together. That was sort of, I think part of the package when you get me doing something is like, there's going to be at least one or two songs. And what other stuff are people interested in talking about?
That's not. No.
And again, you can chat, or you can just chime in verbally, but what kinds of stuff, what would be a good use of people's times? And Nathaniel, I think you did a little survey, or you seem to have some ideas when we talked before and a little bit this morning about like what's on people's minds. And because I'm happy to kind of go in a number of different directions if we need to today.
For me, Peter, think about what you do. For me, this caregiving stuff, I know it's a crisis, but it's very frustrating. And I'm very grateful for what we have. So I was wondering if we could sing a couple of songs, get people energized, and then we're just so grateful to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Ramsey. Yeah, that sounds great. One idea that I had was to and let me just check our chat room here. So thanks, Vanessa. We heard a little bit from Vanessa, born and raised in Milwaukee, and has been living in West Bend since about 2014. And we heard from Sydney, the direct care worker shortage, and how people who really need help, sometimes these days it's hard to find that. And so just giving some people some ideas. Yeah, definitely. I'd love to talk about that. One thought that I have about all of this is maybe I'll just sing one short song to start with, which touches on some of the things that I think we're going to talk about today. And it's based on, like a real experience that I had where I got to
Are
meet.
you still, 1 second, Sydney, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on.
We can't see you.
Okay, hang on. I
Same
might
thing
leave and
hap-
come back in.
It happened again, huh?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I
Figure it
know.
out.
We can
That's
hear your
okay.
voice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can hear your nice voice, which is, I'm so glad you're singing song. I played your CD this morning, one of them. I have all your CDs, so.
Hey, Cindy, thank you. Cindy Bentley, thank you. You might not have this one. It's pretty new. It's the
Oh,
greatest.
I'm gonna have to order it and then I'll have to get it from you.
It's the greatest hits.
Okay, thank
me-
you.
Let me figure out a way to yeah.
Okay,
We'll make some deals. I'm always making deals. So anyway, so this is a true story, and I'll sing you the song, and then we can talk a little bit about it because it touches on things like people's rights. It touches on how do we find the right kind of caregivers or personal care workers or direct support professionals, whatever the term we want to use is. And how do we listen deeply to people to really help figure out, how a person's life can reflect like who they really are and who they want to be and what they want in their life and what they don't want in their life. And it's to me, it kind of hits at the heart of what People First is about. And it started off a little weird meeting Marie. In the song, I call her Marie, but that's not her real name. But I didn't have permission to use her real name, so I'm not using it. But it was a number of years ago when Wisconsin was closing down some sort of like medium-sized institutional settings around the state. And so what I was doing was I was asked to come in to help make some plans for people who were moving out, maybe that had lived there for a long time. Because what would, come up with ideas about, well, what could life look like once a person moves out and has like a home that's more like their own home. Maybe they're sharing it with another person or two people. But it's like living life truly in the community instead of in this kind of facility. And so I was pretty excited. So I got to know a bunch of people and had some involvement with coming up with some plans. And one of them was Marie. And when I first went over to meet her, I knew that like before I actually got to spend time with her in person, I needed to look through a bunch of stuff that they had there, like the written records, like the file, like the Marie file. And that's never my favorite part because I'm not really into paperwork, but I knew that it was part of the deal. Like I had to kind of go through and read about her history and read about her medications and read about all this stuff. And then I'd eventually be able to meet her in person and we could start like, come on, let's have some fun and make some real plans. And in her file, there was a form that's a kind of a fill in the blank form. And guess what it was about? It was a form about behavior. Okay. And so it said, here's the form. The form looked like this. When blank, fill in the name, does blank, the behavior that we're concerned about, we think it means blank. In other words, here's why we think the person is, doing this behavior. And I thought, okay, well, that's a reasonable idea, like fill in the blank and maybe you can figure out, what's happening. And so hers, on her form, it said, when Marie throws her food on the floor and yells, "Get this crap away from me," we think she means that she doesn't like the food. And I thought, I bet you're right. I bet you that's why she's throwing her food and yelling, "Get this crap away from me." I bet she doesn't like the food here in this kind of institutional setting. And so when I saw that, I thought, okay, well, that would make a good name for a song. I thought, so the name of this song is "Get This Crap Away From Me." And it goes like, oh, and also the director of nursing, when I came in that day, she said, after I read these records and was talking to her about, Marie throwing her food on the floor and being upset. And the director of nursing said, yeah, I don't think you're going to want to meet with her around mealtime because it gets really messy. And I said, actually, I would love to meet with her around mealtime because I don't mind if food's getting thrown. I kind of just want to see, like, in the moment, like be with her and like see what's going on. So I did. And excuse me, on that particular day, she really didn't throw much food. But eventually she did move out, and I'm going to tell you about that after I sing this song. So this is about my first impression and meeting with Marie for the first time. I met a woman who was named Marie inside of a facility. Well, she'd been living there for 30 years. The staff said she didn't like her peers. Well, it turned out she liked nothing at all about living in those four walls. When they brought her food so cheerfully, she'd yell, "Get this crap away from me. Get this crap far away from me. I wouldn't eat it if you paid me. You never listened when I told you before. That's why it always ends up on the floor. Get this crap far away from me. Feels like it's been here for eternity. Instead of telling me I need to stop, you should be getting a broom and a mop." I read the social worker's assessment. They were wondering what Marie meant when she says, "Get this crap away from me." Does she think the food is not tasty? It's pretty clear Marie has no choice, and they don't listen when she uses her voice. It don't take no genius to see why she says, "Get this crap away from me, away from me, away from me."
Like you again?
Thank you, Peter. That was awesome. That was great.
That's based on a tune by John Prine, one of my favorite singer-songwriters, who unfortunately died. It was about 2 years ago due to COVID complications, and a real loss for the world of great music. But he lives on in our memories, and I borrowed a tune from him for that. So here's the thing. I just, for those of you that I've never met before and haven't, heard me talking about stuff or singing my songs, I want you to know that I try to use humor in some of what I do, because for me, that's a comfort zone. And I think it helps to sort of share a message that way sometimes. But it's not humor at the expense of another person that might be, in the song. In other words, I'm not singing that song to make fun of Marie. I'm singing that song to share a message that comes directly from Marie, but I'm sharing it in a way that hopefully people will get engaged and think there's something that's a little bit fun about it, even though it's about a serious topic. In this case, it's about a woman who for a long time had absolutely no say in what her life was like, including what was on the menu. So I think most of us who are here today together would agree that what we want to eat is important to us, and that we would hope that we would have and expect to have some choice in what we eat. Do we always eat the most nutritious food? No. Do we hopefully eat a pretty well-balanced diet? Sure. Yeah, we do. Do we like to have a say in what's going to be for lunch or for dinner or for breakfast? Yeah. So Marie, for a long time, had no choice about any of that. It was just like, here's your food. It's coming to you on a tray. And, this is lunch today, or this is dinner today. And so it was kind of, to me, it's like not surprising that was frustrating for her. And that sometimes she would yell, "Get this crap away from me," because what she was saying was, if people would only listen to her, what she was saying was, the food here sucks and I want something different. And she just didn't have the power herself to make that happen. When she moved, what we knew was that when she got to move out of there, we wanted people around her and in her life and providing support that really understood that food, like to most of us, makes a big difference to her, and get to know Marie, not as somebody who's grouchy and grumpy, throwing her food on the floor, but as a person who gets to start a new life, you know, with the values of what you all do with your work with people first and your involvement with people first. And basically what it was is, how do we start a life, you know, now for Marie when she's in her 50s, that basically says, I care about who's with me. I care about the people that are getting hired to provide the direct support. I care about what I get to eat. I care about my safety. I care about having a chance to do meaningful things like get a part-time or a full-time job. I care about a lot of things. She cared about staying in touch with her family and meeting new friends and getting to know her neighbors. And that's what can come out of someone who has lived like she did in an institutional type setting for a long time. When we start to get it right and we start to really listen to people. And Cindy Bentley, if you don't mind me just bringing you up for a second, if you're still there. I'm sure you're there.
Yes, I'm
Sonia.
here.
Yeah. Hi, Cindy.
I'm just listening.
You're one of the people who, over a lot of years now for me, has been such a great teacher when it comes to your job, you people that are paid to be in my life, is to listen to what is important to me so that together we can make good things happen in my life. I'm totally just summarizing some of what I've learned from you, Cindy.
Thank you. And I was at San Quentin too, you know that.
Yeah.
I call it San Quentin.
Also known as Southern Center, right?
Yeah, correctly. Not
Yeah.
because I wanted to be.
Yeah.
No.
And so I feel like in talking with you, Cindy, and learning and some of the stuff that you talked about when we made the videos, part of me just wants to say to the whole system in our state, you know, it's not that complicated. Like what people who are self-advocates, people who are advocates at all, people who are involved in people first, who are like communicating preferences and expecting that, you know, they're getting the same rights and privileges as other people do, are not asking for the world. People are asking for, will you please respect me? Will you please understand that I need to live someplace that feels safe to me? Will you please understand that I have a voice, whether or not I'm communicating verbally, that I have a voice about what's important to me. And I need you to be on my team to help me get the kind of life that I want. It's not that complicated. And I understand that, you know, we have funding issues all the time. I understand there's a direct workforce crisis, absolutely. But your message, the message that People First gives out to the world and to our communities it's a fairly straightforward message that says, treat me like a human being and understand that we all have more in common with each other than we have differences. So let's focus on what we have in common And Cindy, you said in one of the video, one of the parts of our interview, you said this thing, which is just perfect. And you said, because we were in your apartment making the video.
Oh, yeah.
And you said, this is my house. You said that this is my house. And I decide who comes into my house and who doesn't come into my house. And you said, it's my house, so don't come in here with a big plan about how things ought to be in my house. Like that's what you were saying was like, that's my plan. You know, that's Cindy's plan about how things
Or
should be.
in my magazines, you know, if I want to have a stack of magazines, I paid for 'em and they stay.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
want to look at the magazines, then hit the door. That's what I said, hit the door. You
Yeah.
don't pay rent here, I pay rent here, in a nice way. I always have to say it that.
Absolutely. And
Right.
Cindy, Cindy, there've been a couple times where you and I have been together and with people when they've watched the videos or the video. I think we did that at the self-determination conference.
Yeah, and we did it at some other place with
Yeah.
Connie O'Brien and
Yeah.
what's her husband's name? I forgot his name now.
John.
Yeah, John. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I have shared over the years with people how you talk about your home and the fact that this is my place, like you're a guest in my house. So be respectful of what you're doing in my house with me and with my stuff, right?
Yeah.
And when there's one thing that you say, and when people hear you say this, Cindy, I've told you this before, but it's been a while since we talked about it.
Yeah.
But when people hear you say this, I watch the reaction on people's faces, and most of the people that I share that with, excuse me, are people who are in direct support roles, or people who are supervisors or service coordinators, case managers, care managers. They're those kind of paid professional people. And when Cindy, when they hear you say this, I see it like a light bulb goes off. And what I'm talking about is when you say, there's one point where you say, I don't come to your house and tell you what to do. So please don't come into my house and tell me what to do.
Yes, and I think because it's like the first person I had as a caregiver, she was so controlling. And I want to tell this story to these guys. So she had my checkbook, and I should have my own checkbook. Well, she was controlling. I grabbed the checkbook. I've never been violent in my life, but I grabbed the checkbook. I locked her out of my apartment, and she couldn't get in. And I said, "Don't come back."
Yeah.
And then I called the agency and let them know that I wasn't going to have that. I said, I pay rent here, and I will be in charge of my checkbook and whatever else. I think ever since I did that, I have control of this apartment. So if you come through here, I'll offer you a cookie. I offered Peter and cookies or whatever. But if you can't respect it, hit the door. There's the door. Goodbye.
Why not? You met it? You like that?
But I'm sorry, Peter. I just wanted to say that too, because
Yeah.
that gave me some freedom. That gave me some freedom. When I first moved in this apartment, it's been 39 years I've been in the same apartment. This downstairs 1 year. And I have to say, my good friend Mary Claire found this apartment. But like he said, I don't tell, if I went to Peter's house or Sydney's, I'm not going to tell you how to live in your house and how your pets or whatever, or massage you, or anybody on this phone. If you want to have a junky house, that's fine. I can't do nothing about it because I don't pay rent at that house or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but
So,
thank you for Peter. I really
yeah.
appreciate that because
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. The other thing I just wanted to say about Marie that's in that song is that what we found out after she moved, do any of you ever watched well, first of all, I'm curious if any of you like, finding recipes and cooking your own food. That's one question. Do any of you like going to the farmer's market or going to a store that has fresh produce and picking out this is fresh stuff, not just canned stuff, not just frozen stuff, but like fresh produce. Maybe some of you have some experience gardening. You like to garden and grow your own vegetables and flowers and all those things were true about Marie, It's just that nobody knew it for years and decades because she didn't have access to do any of that for herself. She was living in this place that she had no control about, that, you know, it was decided by other people. And so once she moved and we got to kind of start from the beginning and like start over with her, she got to start over. It's like, she loves trying different recipes. She loves watching food shows like on the Food Network and learning, and like, some of those shows, like they have competitions for contestants
Oh,
who
like the Bake Off, and then I watch them
Yeah.
all. I like
yeah.
that.
Chopped. Yeah. She loves that kind of stuff, but did she ever have that at the facility she was living in? No, she didn't. She didn't have that. She couldn't garden. She couldn't go to farmers markets. She couldn't try new recipes. And so all of that stuff contributed to, around mealtime, when I met her in the place that she had been living in, of course, she's not going to be in a good mood. Of course, she's going to feel frustrated and like she's missing out and she's not being heard and she's not being respected. And so that was part of the, that's a whole new thing. That became a new thing in her life, where, we're done with people not respecting what you like to eat, Marie. Now you have a say and you get to go grocery shopping and you get to have a garden, all that stuff, because that's what you want in your life. And so it changes. And so Cindy, the reason I bring you up is because, we've known each other for a long time, and
Probably 30 years, about as long as I've known Kathy, 30.
yeah. And
Kathy's
and you and Marie and thousands of other people have this message that is so important for the people who are paid in the service system to hear, which is, okay, let me tell you this as clearly as I can. This is my house. Respect me in my house. Or in the case of Marie, this is why I'm throwing my food on the floor, because the food is horrible and I don't want to live here anymore. So can you guys do something about that? It's people who are basically saying, I'm trying to communicate. I have needs and I have desires, and I want different choices in my life than what I'm being offered right now.
Yeah.
I think it's up to all of us to hear each other in whatever way we have to hear and listen, and respect that and figure out, okay, so what do we need to do to make that happen? So some of you, in fact, wait a minute, let me use a real name here and just jump back for a second. Vanessa, I'll just refer back to something that you said, which was that you were born and raised in Milwaukee, but you wanted to move away from Milwaukee. And so now you live in West Bend. So that was you saying, I need a change in my life. Like I want to move somewhere else. That's another example of what we're talking about. And I think of what People First is about, which is listening and respecting and taking action when we can on things that are important to people. So anyway, other thoughts? I want to make sure that we're hearing from as many people as we can. Anybody else want to chime in?
There's a kitty.
I'll ask the chat, Peter.
Sure.
Hey, Peter.
Yeah.
I don't mean to disagree with you at all.
Yeah.
Because your message is so great and it comes from the heart. But that's what I love about it. But on the other hand, there's people starving in the world that would probably love to have that food, but I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to disrespect the person's choice,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean?
Sure. I sure do. I sure do. That's a really good point. And
Oh, absolutely agree with that, Ramsey. I really do.
yeah, thanks, Ramsey. Thank you for bringing that up because that is, there are definitely people in the world and people here in Wisconsin who are going to bed hungry and waking up hungry. And the thought of having, even if the food isn't perfect, at least it's food, right? So
Amen.
yeah,
Well,
that's a really,
That's
say
the,
that,
that's the only that's the only issue I had with the song, but uh, I'll let you go because I have to mute and take a phone call.
okay.
All righty,
Sounds good.
buddy.
Thanks, Ramsey.
How many
Ramsey
people
brings
you?
up a good point.
Mhm.
I think every time I'm eating, because I cook for myself, cook for one.
Yeah.
And I always think, and I always, ask, I don't like to use, I just want to tell you what I do because I cook for one. I love cooking big. And then I say I'm going to go back and eat the stuff in the next couple of days, and I don't. It's because either I got too busy or it just, got spoiled. And then I said, some people that are starving in Milwaukee could have had my food. So I'm really conscious about wasting food. And our news had on there about a couple of months ago how much food is wasted in Wisconsin and in the world. How
Yeah.
much food we waste every single day in the garbage.
Yep.
And so I got to thinking of, like Ramsey said, is I try not to wait. So now I cook less than what I do. And if I can't eat it right away, I freeze it because, I'm one person, I'm cooking for one. Sometimes I have my friends over, but that's since COVID, no. So like you say, Peter, but we have choices. I love to eat. I love eating. My main thing, and I love food and I love fresh food. So, but like you said, is the person that didn't have no choice, like the person you were talking about, and then like Ramsey said, people starving in our city, in all our cities, even in the rural city, they're starving, going to bed without eating. So you're right, Peter. I mean, and so is Ramsey, and so I know. I hope somebody else can say something on here. So you guys need to, Peter's here. I don't
Yeah.
want you just to hear my voice and
So-
Nathaniel's. I want to hear some. I know we got voices. I know last Thursday we had this whole group on, and so let's talk it up, guys. The
Yeah,
director says talk it
Peter.
up.
Peter, could you repeat the question, please, or what you're trying to get through? I mean, what do you want the discussion to be about?
Well, I mean, I'm open to hearing anything about what's on people's minds. I think the reason that I wanted to share that one song, and maybe before we close down at noon, I'll share one more, but was, basically to say, I mean, there's several messages that I have for people involved in People First. One is just please keep doing the work that you're doing because it does make a difference. And remember that there are people still in our communities, in Wisconsin, in institutional settings in Wisconsin. And by the way, not all institutions are great big buildings. Sometimes in a very small, you can live in a very small home and it can feel like an institution. And some of you may have had that experience. And so I guess what I want to say is the reason that I think your work is so important with People First is that it never gets old. And by that, what I mean is that there are people all around the state that need to keep hearing these messages, sometimes over and over, the message that you all have, which is, listen to me, I have a voice, I have rights, and I need to be respected just like you. And so that's why I mentioned Cindy's conversation about her home being her home and her expectations about, you know, look, here's an example. There are lots of people who have disabilities that live in Wisconsin, and they live in a home somewhere, like they're not homeless, they have a home, but it doesn't feel like their home. It doesn't feel like they, like Cheryl, somebody who I met up in northern Wisconsin, who got moved into a home that did not at all feel like it was her home. She felt like this is some home run by some agency that doesn't have anything to do with me, but now I'm being told this is where I'm going to live. And she didn't have any say in that. And it didn't take very long for things to fall apart for her, because, you know, she didn't feel respected. She didn't feel like she had any choice in where she was living. And I'm not saying that we can always prevent that kind of thing from happening. Maybe we can't, but we shouldn't just accept that as like, that's okay. You should be happy you have a roof over your head. I think what we should be saying is, what kind of home do you want to live in? Who do you want to live with? In Cindy's case, at least last I knew Cindy, if you ask Cindy, who do you want to live with, Cindy, her answer would be, I like to live by myself. Like,
And the roommate is a cat. I said that.
my roommate is a cat. And
Amen. That
if
will,
somebody
I
wants to-
can say amen, but yeah.
yeah, if someone wants to live alone, we should be figuring out, okay, how do we make that happen? Not saying that's unrealistic. If somebody says, you know what, I've lived in this house with 5 other people for a few years, I'm tired of it. I don't really like living with 5 other people. I'd rather just have one roommate. Well, we should figure out how can we help make that happen? Not just say, you know, too bad, this is where you live. And unfortunately, that message still gets out there from our service system. And I'm saying that I'm not blaming anyone or trying to be harshly critical of our service system. I'm just saying that, you know, it's 2022, and some of the same things we were talking about 30, 40 years ago are still true today. And it means we still have a lot of work to do. And that's why I'm really happy to be with you guys, because People First is one of the, you know, one kind of group that's leading the way on helping to remind our system that we're watching you, like we're watching you, and you need to listen to us, because because it's very personal. It's about, you know, it's about my life. It's about your life.
So I can give you a quick story, Peter.
Yeah,
When I
please.
was in college, I had to switch roommates 3 different times
Mhm.
because they were drinking, they didn't know how to clean up, they were disrespectful, they would use the N-word, just very racist and everything. So what I had to do was I had to go to the house director, the
Yeah.
main campus director. I had to go to the complex director, and because I was at UW-Whitewater, it was an easy transition.
Mhm.
When I'm saying it, I didn't have the experiences like Ramsey would have to go through, or what Cindy had to go through. I'm
Mhm.
talking about just being decency to people.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we have to start, is just being decency when we meet people. Don't treat them like, just treat them like Cindy. Just treat them like Ramsey. Just treat them like Cindy. Just treat them like their name and what
Yeah.
that's why I don't disclose my disability,
Mhm.
because I want to be treated like Nathaniel. And I
Yeah.
think we have to
Yeah.
get to that point to actually really start with the complex subjects.
Yeah.
Because if we can't get through that process, how are people going to listen? Because does Cindy wants to, I don't want to speak for Cindy, I don't want to speak for anyone, but people want to advocate for themselves. They don't want to have iris consultants. They don't want to have, they want to call up the Capitol. they want to call up their doctors, they want to call up their anyone that they need help with. They want to do it by themselves, and they want to be respected by themselves.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of, I think we have to have plain language. I think we have to have more questions, like written up questions. Like, do you understand what Cindy know what she's talking about?
Mhm.
Do you have any questions on what she's just said to you? Even though that she might not understand you, you have to understand her. And I think that's why we're at this stigma,
Mm.
and people don't want to work hard to figure that out. They don't want to make videos. I mean, let's just get down. I'm just saying that we have to get down to the bare and bones of this problem, not just like I think that's the problem, is that we have to get down to the bears and bones about this.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Nathaniel. Yeah. I think
mean,
so too.
And I don't know what that looks like. I think it's videos. I think it's telling you stories, but also thinking that coming from the provider's perspective, it's actually educating themselves. And how do we do that?
Right. And I agree. And I think what you're saying makes me also think that one of the most important things, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I wasn't thinking to say anything about it, but I think it is really important that the kind of conversation that we're having right now, and the time goes by fast, and I know it's almost noon, and if you guys are ever interested in me being with you again for one of these, I would love to, because I mean, number one, we only got to one song, but number two, there's so much to talk about. But these kinds of conversations are, to me, absolutely necessary to have with each other, just in terms of like people first meetings, I think, but also with for any of you that are connected with, fill in the blank. Is it a provider agency, an MCO, Iris consultant, guardian, family members, like all of the people, and then anyone else who I might have left out of that, that need to be engaged in hearing this. So what, in not only hearing your voice about it, but also in like problem solving and thinking and brainstorming about, so what can we do about that? So, in other words, it's like how does this play out, that what we're talking about in a day-to-day fashion with any one person's life? So right now, let me just think, if I'm just going to say somebody who I know named Eric, if Eric, who wants to move from where he lives right now and wants something meaningful to do during the day instead of sitting at home and watching TV all day, those are two things that Eric can tell anybody who will be willing to listen to him. I want to move to a different place and I want something to do, like a job. Okay. Those are two things. Nobody's going to come in and say, oh, I'll wave my magic wand, Eric, and you can move tomorrow and you can start your job the next day. No, but why has it been 2 years that Eric's been talking about that and nothing has happened? Like,
Because, yeah, I think it's the point that I brought up, Peter. It's like,
yeah,
what's the education? And it's like, when I'm talking, and I'm not trying to take up all the time here, but when I'm trying to talk to like the government, like my representatives, how about we get some internships for people who are caregivers? Or so their job is rewarding. Internships, just an internship, just so that their job is meaningful. And I mean, that's what I said to my congressman, and he just like, I'm going to still beat the drum, but what I'm saying is that we have to have some incentives that people are like, my job is meaningful. And it can belong to education, it can belong to employment if they want to go that way.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of those that could be open. That's all I'm gonna say.
No, that's great. That's great. I think that's a great way to bring us right to our 12 o'clock hour. Thanks, Nathaniel.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I love being with you for these kinds of talks and just sharing with each other our experiences. And so, yeah, let me know if you want to do this again with me sometime. I would love to. So thank you all for being here.
I will follow up with you, Peter, after the
Okay.
meeting, and then maybe we can set another date. I'll talk to Cindy about that, and maybe we can set up another date. You know, really soon. We were just trying to educate people, right? So we
Yeah.
have to like try to, maybe Cindy, you and I can talk on like how to plan that meeting, so we can educate. We're just trying to figure out a way that we can have you, that's all.
Okay. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know how to find me. So thank you.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Awesomeness. Okay. Thanks, everybody.